Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a few palettes that I think are perfect for springtime. I am so ready for the warmer weather. I'm so tired of it being cold, but I know this look might be like a little bit all over the place. I sat down to film this video and I had black earrings and a black shirt on, and I felt like that was just so wrong for spring. I tried to lighten it up a little bit. I don't know how well it matches with the makeup look. Don't worry about that. We're just talking about some palettes today, so hopefully you don't care too much. We've got 7 palettes to talk about, and I think I have to start it out with the most obvious spring palette in my collection. This came out, I believe, last summer, so I'm excited to have this in the springtime this year. Of course, I'm talking about this one. This is the Give Me Glow Pastel Dreams palette. You guys know I am obsessed with this palette. I have a video coming out I think it would be up before this one. So I have a video that came out about this palette just recently where I used it to create a look, and I don't have any words for it. I just love this palette so much. I don't think I need to explain it. The pastels, spring, like pastels equal spring to me. So I just think that this palette is the perfect spring palette. I love it so much. Maybe we'll stack the palettes up here with the dogs as we talk about them. Yeah, let me scoot over. Next up is this little mini. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Quad in Pillow Talk, or the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Quad. This is a really great spring palette as well. I think that these tones lend themselves very well to spring, specifically this pink matte shade here. This in the crease just is a very spring look to me. I think this is a very fun little quad, especially for spring, but just in general, I do really enjoy this palette. I really like the matte tones. I know I've mentioned this a lot, but I do get hard pan on both of these shimmer shades a lot. So for the price, I just feel like it's important to mention that in case you've never heard me say that before. But in general, I do really like this quad, and I think I'll be getting a lot of use out of it in the springtime. Also, I think I made a video like this last spring. I didn't go back and watch it because I'm sure that there are some repeats in this video, but my collection's on the smaller side, so that's kind of inevitable. But if you want to see that video, then be sure to check it out. But next up is going to be another small palette. This is the Essence Coral Me Maybe palette. I think this is a perfect peachy spring tone palette. I just think these peachy kind of light shades just kind of signify like a lot of the flowers blooming. We're getting out of the cold. We're starting to see some nicer weather. This just reminds me of that. So I definitely think I'll be getting the majority of my use out of this palette in the springtime because I don't really reach for it that often, especially in the fall and winter. So I'm hoping I will really enjoy this in the spring and even in summer. Also, that palette is like $3 or $4. It's amazing. Next up is this one. This is the Huda Nude Light palette. I think this is such a perfect spring tone palette. It's very light, very airy. I love especially this shimmer shade for spring and most all of the mattes, especially the pink and the purple. A great, again, spring palette. Also, can we just take a minute? Look at all those pans. I love seeing the pans in the palette. Next up is another given. I feel like you probably knew I would mention this one, but this is the Colourpop Making Mauves palette. I think I mentioned this last year in the video as well, but I love this one. For a while there, I was thinking that throughout the day I was noticing the quality didn't seem to be the same. The shimmer shades would end up all over my face. I think that was my eyeshadow primer. I've been using the Ulta Beauty Matte Eye Primer, and I have not been noticing that. So I don't think it's the palette. I don't know why it was only happening with this palette. Maybe because especially this shade called Bi-Coastal is a little bit more of a chunky shimmer. So maybe it was just more noticeable with that one. I'm really not sure, but nonetheless, I don't think it's doing that. So I really think it might have been the eyeshadow primer. Hopefully, I'm not going to question it because it's working great right now. And I think that the tones of this, especially even the packaging, is so beautiful and it's perfect for springtime. The next palette is one from Juvia's place, and this is called the Deuce. This one has been discontinued, but I cannot make this video and not mention this palette. Are you kidding me? This is spring in a palette. I always use this palette so much in the spring. I say always, I did last year. I think it was the only one I owned it in the spring. But anyways, I really love this palette and I always think of spring when I see it. So I know I'll be getting a lot of use out of it with the mint tones especially. And this one too called Custard is such a spring tone shade to me. This duochrome shade called Tarte is perfect for spring. I just think it's so beautiful. Really all of these shades. The only one that might not be is like crepes and even Mont Blanc. But take those two out and the chocolate brown, this is spring to me. And then this provides a little bit more variety. But again, this is a great palette. I mentioned this a couple times. At this point, the palette's been discontinued for a while, so I don't know how much I would suggest it now. I personally bought this palette from someone off of Poshmark who had barely ever touched it before. I felt okay doing it. Their powders are pretty easy to sanitize. You could just use some like rubbing alcohol, but it's been discontinued for a while. But I have heard of a lot of people who have recreated this with singles, so if you have a good singles collection, maybe you're able to do that as well. But I think it's a really great palette. Hopefully, if nothing less, this can give you some inspiration if you don't have this palette, but I just think the tones in this are so inspiring for spring. And the last palette that I have to talk about is one I have been wearing non-stop. I have a shade from it on the lid today. This is the Huda Mercury Retrograde palette. I think this palette is beautiful all year round, but especially in the spring, because most of the shades in this palette do lean pink. That's very typical for Huda. And I guess an honorable mention could be even the new Nudes palette, because I do think that's a great palette for spring. But as far as like looking into my collection and getting the palettes that scream it to me, this is that one for me. Because while they all lean pretty pink, they also have some really nice like light shimmer shades, like the two of these here, Cosmic and Galaxy. They look so beautiful on the lid. This one called Supermoon is also really pretty to be able to lighten up anything, and especially like Utopia, Libra, Off Balance, even Haze, I think, since it's like a more pastel shade, is very spring to me. I just think overall this entire palette screams spring to me. I do remember filming this last year because scream spring is really hard for me to say, so I definitely think I made this video last year. I definitely think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this palette in spring. I get a lot of use out of it all year round. This is in a specific eyeshadow project pan of mine. If you don't know about that project, I call it the Project Huda Beauty, but I'm trying to pan a lot of Huda eyeshadows. This is in that, of course, so. But I know this is a really quick video. It's kind of hard to like talk about them extensively, and I don't want to just ramble on. I feel like you know how much I love all of these palettes already, but I definitely think that they're perfect for spring. But yeah, with that being said, that's gonna be it for today's video. These are all the palettes I think can either inspire you, or if you have them in your collection, maybe you can reach for them. But I just think in general, all of the shades and tones in these palettes really remind me of spring and make me very excited for spring. I am over winter. I don't really like it when it's cold. We had really warm weather today and I am here for it. I never want it to get cold again. Can it just stay beautiful and warm? That's all I'm asking. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!